A very hearty good afternoon, friends. My name is Shankar, and I'm very glad to be with you all here today. And what I thought we could discuss about could be about the future of library itself, how it is shaping up, and how it could possibly evolve into as we move into the future. And when this happens, what will be the new role of us librarians? This is something very important for us to start thinking and start preparing ourselves for. So, with this intent, I have picked up this topic for discussion today. And to really start it at the right place, we need to kind of have a good understanding of what are the forces that are really shaping the library of the future. Once we understand these forces, then we'll be able to systematically prepare ourselves, where I have put together three very basic rules and three models that would help us to prepare ourselves for this future library. And also, most importantly, as a community of librarians, it's important for us to have a roadmap in terms of how we can go from wherever we are today to this future state of the library. And finally, and most importantly, we also need to deliberate what are those critical skills that future librarians would need, and how do we start building those skills amongst us. So, this is the plan for my talk today. In terms of introduction to this exciting field of library science, at least for me, since I'm not a professional librarian, so it was a very, very interesting beginning for me. And it all goes back to the foundational work done by Dr. S.R. Ranganathan, who is considered the father of library science. And I come from a physics background, so I was very happy to see this quote that Ranganathan is to library science what Einstein is to physics. And I know what Einstein is to physics. So I was so happy to know that we as a country have produced a person who has made such big contribution to library science. And we all should feel so proud of this fact that the father of library science was born in India. So this is really gives us a very good start to say that we have great potential to further grow this science in India going forward. When we look at the future of library, the way things are shaping up, looks like almost everything about the library will change. But there will be five things which may not stay, which may not really change. And these five things will still be very relevant even when we get into the future. And those five things are nothing but the five laws of library science that SRR had created way back. Very simple and very, very practical, centered around the themes that books are of for use. Every reader, his or her book. Every book, its reader. Save the time for the reader, and the library must be a growing organism. These five facts, or these five fundamental truths, will continue to be the same and continue to be relevant as we get into the future of library. In this last few months of lockdown, all of us being cut away from our favorite workplaces and the libraries, you may think, what is it one can do when you are cut off from all resources, when you are working from home? But friends, interestingly, crisis times like this have given birth to many great new ideas and inventions and new discoveries. Isaac Newton, his college was closed and he was sent back home because of a health crisis way back there. And then when he was back home and when he was cut off from his classroom and library, that's when the historic incident of he sitting under an apple tree and seeing the apple fall and creating the theory of gravity happened. And also, he didn't stop with gravity. He also created the entire theory of optics. And he also developed the powerful tool, calculus, all during a time when he was away from his workplace, away from his learning place, totally cut off from all the resources. And it is during this tough time that he had made such groundbreaking discoveries in science. Some of the most common inventions around us today, like the ballpoint pen or the ATM machine or even the Nescafe, all these were invented during the post Second World War when the things were very tough, when people were going through a low phase. It is that time, that tough time, when these inventions were made. It's not only about technology, inventions, and science, even business models. Many new business models, disruptive business models, picked up momentum during crisis times. It was during a financial crisis that somebody thought, can I rent a spare room in my house and make some extra money? That's how Airbnb picked up momentum. Same with Uber. Can I use my car to generate some additional revenue? So crisis times are, in fact, ideal time for inventions, innovations, and disruptions. So, we are going through definitely a crisis time during this last few months, and maybe we could consider using this time to come up with new ideas that would create the library of the future. If you look at S.R. Ranganathan's life, when he was in the UK, he was working very, very hard and he was immersing himself totally in his work. He used to work maybe 12 to 16 hours every day, and even on Saturdays and Sundays. He had visited almost 100 plus libraries and he was totally immersed himself in his work because the whole field he found it so exciting, and he was trying to make some fundamental contributions to that space. And during that phase, one evening, he took a break and went to a toy shop. And in the toy shop, he saw a salesman demonstrating something very interesting. This was called a mechano, which is a mechanical assembly kit, like a building brick, where you have the small metal pieces with holes and then you connect them and build big structures. When he saw this, that was a trigger for him to come up with the colon classification method, where he thought, can I connect words? Can I connect words to create new terms, new phrases? That way, we'll be able to expand to include a lot of new topics because we are just building something new by connecting a bunch of independent words. So, with all this deep immersion and so many ideas floating in his head, it was during a break time when he saw this mechano that Eureka moment happened and he was able to come up with one of his greatest contribution, which is the colon classification. We have seen such creative moments in the lives of many other people. Newton we already talked to when he saw the apple fall and connected that with gravity. And the famous chemist Kekule, in fact, when he had to discover the structure of benzene, he discovered it. Actually, the trigger came for him in his dream when he saw a snake trying to catch its own tail. So many times, friends, the creative spark happens after you have totally immersed yourself in the work, and then you have taken a break, and then when you are trying to totally stay away from that domain and think of something else, that time the subconscious mind offers a trigger and that leads to a new discovery. So whether it's in physics or chemistry or in library science, you see this happening again and again and again. So friends, when you are set yourself to make big contributions in your own domain, I would love to remind you that it's very important for you to keep some space, keep some time for creativity so that you'll be able to look at things from a fresh perspective and come up with innovative approaches to the problems that you're trying to solve. This is very, very important. During the mid March, just 2 weeks after the lockdown started, Mr. Anand Mahindra gave an interview to Economic Times where he reminded us that this is the time that we should reboot, reinvent, and reignite ourselves. He said, he in fact challenged us to say, can we use the lockdown period to relook at personal and professional way of life to prepare ourselves for the future and to serve the post-corona world. So let's think about how the post-corona library would be, what new practices we need to bring, what new products and solutions we need to bring for a post-corona library. Same way, can we use the downtime to actually look at the way we do things and ask ourselves, is there a better way to do? This is also the time, friends, for us to come up with new ideas and innovations, and taking advantage of this crisis to dream bigger dreams about the future and raising ambitions once the crisis has passed. So, this is the right time for us to start ideating about the library of the future and start shaping our ideas towards enabling it. Libraries have played a very key role in my life. If I look at the libraries that shaped my learning, I can think of three libraries. The one which was at the Sri Sathya Sai University at Prashanthi Nilayam, where I did my master's in physics. It was one of the best libraries that I had come across, the best collection of books, and in a very, very user friendly manner, the books were arranged. And the three librarians whom I got to interact with during my master's 2 years there, Srinivasan, Mahalingam, Dr. Jogiraju, who was also doing his PhD in library science at the time. They're some of the best librarians that I have come across. So the library is always a combination of its collection of books and the personality of the librarians who run the library. So this was a library that I remember with a lot of fondness and affection. The next library that played a very, very big role in my life is the J.R.D. Tata Memorial Library, which is at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Currently, this library is led by Dr. Ananda Bhairappa. This is a beautiful library. I have spent many, many hours in this library. Not only during my PhD days, even after my PhD days, I spent many long hours in the library, writing some of the best papers in my career. All were done in this particular library. This library used to close up about 11 in the night and used to be one of the last guys to leave the library. This library, as I talk to you, it brings such good memories to me. So, this is right at the heart of the IIC campus. When you walk in there, this will be one of the very first things that you will get to see. And of course, the third library is what I am part of today. And this is the what we call as a knowledge resource center, the library at Mahindra Research Valley in Chennai, where I am currently based. I've been in this for a little more than 4 years, and this library is led by one of the most passionate librarians that I've come across so far, and his name is Ashutosh Joshi. He's so well networked, well connected that he is able to reach out to librarians across the country and sometimes even outside the country to cater to the needs of the users of the library. Is most passionate and most resourceful librarian that I've come across. So these three libraries are libraries which have really made a big impact in my career, in my life, and I owe a lot of my success in my career to these three libraries. When I think of libraries, what also comes to my mind is the people behind the books, the people behind the library. Two people that I think of very, very vividly. The person on the left, you see, he is Mr. Alvar. He was running a old bookshop in Mylapore, Chennai, where I did my undergraduate in physics. This is a small roadside bookshop. There is no shop as such, it's just a pile of books on the roadside. And if you look at him, he doesn't have a chair. He's actually sitting on a pile of books, and that is Mr. Alvar. And you can see he's so simply dressed. But you know what? He was one of the most knowledgeable person when it comes to books. Any book you go to him and ask him for, he'll be able to locate it and get it for you. Even look at this collection, how it is all piled up. But he knows every single book where it is. And there have been very rare occasions when he says that some book is not available or he cannot get it. There is a 99.9% probability that he will get you the book. Amazing. This person lived his entire life with books. And he was ably assisted by another person that you see here who is wearing a white dhoti and a light blue shirt. So his name is Iyer. You don't know what his real name is, just call Iyer. So once you pick up the book, you go to Iyer and you ask him how much you need to pay. And he knows exactly the right price of that book. Amazing, because some books are in very bad shape, but those are very rare books. We'll be desperately needing those books, and Iyer knows exactly the value of that book, and he'll demand you the precise amount for it. So it was this combination of Alvar and Iyer who are making all the best books available to us during our student days. Amazing how much one person can do for book lovers. This is what the combination of Alvar and Iyer shows. In fact, I've shown one of the books, one of the best in my collection that I could get thanks to him. It was a book on atomic physics by J.B. Rajan with a foreword by the famous physicist Louis de Broglie. Can you imagine such a rare book? You could get it for me, and I really cherish these memories. On the right side, there is another librarian whom I think of very, very fondly. And she is a lady, a frail looking but very strong lady, whom you can see here in this group photo. She is the one at the front with a pink color sari, dark pink sari. Her name is Miss Saroj. She is a librarian at the Venture Center of Pune. She is an amazing librarian in the sense that she used to always connect with every single user of the library. She exactly knows what each one of us like and keep sharing with us a lot of interesting information on not only the latest books but also some of the books that she knows that we would really like. Her book recommendations are 100% right every time. And typically, I'm a very serious looking person. I rarely crack jokes and I really have very minimal words I speak. But she found that actually I like a particular book, which is what I show you here, Shel Silverstein's Everything on It. This is one of the most best collection of humorous poems that you'll ever come across anywhere in life. And she introduced me to this book and a whole collection of books of Shel Silverstein, which has made a big, big difference to my life. Today at home, we have some of these books and we sit together as a family, read this page by page and laugh out loud. This is one of our best stress buster. So this lady was able to understand the book needs of every single person who visits her libraries and recommend and sometimes even introduce totally new books. Because I always used to take books on technology or management. I never thought that she would know that I would be interested in a book like this. Even I didn't know. But she suggested and turned out to be one of the best discoveries in my life. So that way, the librarians, the booksellers, lovers of books can really make a big difference in our lives. So it's very, very, this is one of the most sacred profession that we can ever think of. Over the last 2 years at Mahindra, I have been organizing something called the Future of Library. We did this first session in 2019 and we managed to do in 2020 also, just before the lockdown. What essentially we do in this annual conference is bring together the librarians, but both from industry and academia together, and have 2 days dedicated only to brainstorm on ideas of the future library and also to reskill ourselves so that we are able to strengthen all the skills that we need for building the future library. So 2019, we had, in fact, Dr. Ananda Bhairappa of IISc Library giving the keynote address, and it was attended by almost 30 librarians across different parts of the country. And we had rich ideation and brainstorming on Library 4.0, and we brought out a white paper and a lot of actionable ideas out of this particular conference. More recently, in 2020, we did a second version of this where the focus was specifically on reskilling librarians. And again, we published white papers, we have a working list of very rich ideas, and we also have a roadmap in terms of how we can take our own library from where it is today to this future state. And technology is just one part of it. We had covered many other interesting aspects of this future library. So I will definitely share some of these ideas and insights during the course of this talk today. So 2 years we have done this, and we look forward to doing this every year. And I look forward to inviting each one of you who's attending this conference to be part of this event. We would love to host each librarian here at the Mahindra Research Valley campus, which is at the outskirts of Chennai. It's a beautiful green campus with the lakes and hillocks in the background. And this is where we plan to spend 2 days every year just to think about and brainstorm on the future of library. So when we do this in 2021, I would love to host each one of you for this event. So I really look forward to meeting you all in person in 2021. Let's shift gears and get into the core of this talk, which is starting with understanding what are the forces that are shaping the future library. If you look at the way the library is evolving, the content, which was traditionally physical, has moved to a combination of physical and digital over the years. And going forward, we are also seeing more of AR and VR, augmented and virtual reality based tools to give the experience for the users. From a people perspective, the traditional library, which was managed by the librarian and the staff, the team, now over the years we have seen more and more IT automation happening to this, making it easier for the librarian and the team to manage the library. Going forward, we also see a real big opportunity and a transformation in terms of AI assisted, artificial intelligence assisted library management, which can really take it to the next highest level. In terms of resources, the resources were very limited in the past. The trend is more and more resources being made available. It has become an organizational priority to build a state of the art library because we need to really build capability in emerging technologies and create a lot of new knowledge. So companies like Mahindra have really prioritized capability building and built some of the best libraries available in the country. Going forward, these more resources would further scale up and it become actually global resources. I'll explain what I mean by this as we get into the presentation in a few minutes. The utilization of the library, if you see, was fairly limited in the past, and slowly it has expanded over the years, and we are tending towards a global utilization. So, very briefly, I'll share some examples of what I mean by global resources and global utilization. But a fundamental philosophical shift that will happen to the library is in terms of the value itself that the library is going to create for its users. In the past, the value was information. And slowly, over the years, this information has actually gone up the value chain and become knowledge. That's the stage we are in. And going into the future, this knowledge would go up further in the value chain and would really become wisdom. So, this is the thought that I want to describe in little more detail in my next chart. What I mean by this, because we need to understand this right. This is a fundamental philosophical shift, a very basic transformation that's going to drive the library of the future. In the past, information was a very scarce commodity. So we were libraries basically offered information in different ways through books and journals and magazines and reports and databases and whatnot. But the value they were creating was by providing information. When we talk about knowledge, It is not just information, it is processed information, actionable information, information at the next higher plane. And when you talk about wisdom, it's even one level higher, which is actionable knowledge. In the sense, if you are trying to solve a problem, wisdom is the final solution itself with all the insights built into it. So, how do we go up the value chain? Instead of creating value through just information, how do we create value through knowledge? And how do we create value through wisdom? This is the biggest question for every librarian to start thinking about. In the past, whatever we did as librarians was transactional in nature. Going forward, it will be participatory in nature, where it is not just a transaction between the librarian and the user, but it's a collaboration between the librarian and the user of the library. That's what I mean by participatory. Of course, when we move to the future, it will be built on 100% collaboration and co-creation of everything. The librarian and his team and the users of the library will become one single entity, and everything they do will be built on collaboration and co-creation. A lot of the activities that we did in the past was controlled by humans, and currently from human control we are moving into human-centered processes, human-centered initiatives, human-centered products and services. Going into the future, it won't be just human-centered, it will also be augmented by artificial intelligence and machine learning. If to see the impact of this, if we think that the amplification today is 1x, the next stage it will be a 10x amplification versus a 1000x amplification when we reach this future library, which is delivering the value of not just information or knowledge, but actually wisdom, which is actionable knowledge. So this is a very, very fundamental force that is driving the future of library. And all of us need to understand this because this forms the foundation of all other transformation that the libraries will be going through. In terms of technology that are enabling these big changes, there are a few technologies fairly disruptive in nature, also technologies which are growing exponentially very, very fast. It's not only the performance is growing exponentially, the cost of this technology is also falling exponentially so that it becomes affordable and accessible for all librarians across the world. And these technologies are, I'm sure you're all familiar with many of the technologies here, like the mobile internet, the cloud, the Internet of Things, energy storage, clean energy based on renewables, robotics, AI, artificial intelligence, a whole bunch of technologies which are creating innovative and disruptive products and solutions. And these are some of the technologies which will also be the building blocks for the future library. I've just picked up a few of this to illustrate to you how they will really make a difference to the library. But one thing that's clear, we are talking about a connected world. A lot of the technologies and a lot of the applications they enable will be built on access to internet. Internet connectivity is right at the foundation. So if you look at the Maslow's pyramid of hierarchical needs, suddenly you see that internet has entered right at the base of the pyramid. So if your physiological safety, belonging, esteem, self-actualization, all the needs are met, but internet connectivity is not there, you're still not going to be happy. So a lot of the things that we are going to talk about is based on affordable and accessible connectivity to every single person out there, irrespective of where he is, what he is doing. So let us look at the three rules that will help us as librarians to transition into the future. The first rule is something that you always knew and you have been practicing, which is to know your customer. Very simple, very basic. There is no rocket science about it in terms of the importance of knowing your customer. If you look at who your customer is today in the library, The person who walks into a library can be either a digital native or a digital immigrant. When I say digital native, children and young people were born into and raised in a digital world, typically post 1980, may work, study, and interact in very different ways from people like us who are digital immigrants. In the sense, we are from a different generation. Though we have learned digital technologies, we speak these technologies with an accent. It's not natural to us. We are not native speakers. We have learned and we have adapted ourselves to digital technologies. The advent of new digital technologies have changed these young people so essentially that they think and process information fundamentally in a manner which is very, very different from the way we do. So these are native speakers of the digital language of computers, video games, and the internet. If you have a school going or college going kid at home, you know what I'm talking about. These are the digital natives, and we are the digital immigrants. I've shown three pictures here to illustrate what how different it is to be a digital native. So the father is asking the standard question, "How was your day at the school?" And the kid says, "You can read all about it on my blog." Imagine this kid is so tiny, has a blog to share her experience on what happened in the school. And then there is this second digital native, a tiny kid comes back home and he is very furious. He is telling his mom, "How do you think my first day of kindergarten was? They didn't even have Wi Fi." So these kids depend on connectivity, the internet connectivity so much, they can't even imagine a few moments without connectivity. And here is this kid in the third frame, his first day at school. The parents are at home wondering how is he managing his first day at school. And then they see that he is already tweeting them what is happening in the school. So he is constantly is live tweeting all the things that he is experiencing at the school. And the parents at home, they are able to stay connected with him. So, friends, these are not just some funny jokes, these are not some future states. These are very true of the digital natives. And these are the future users of your library. These are the kids who are going to come to your library and look for the library experience. So, when you are creating a future library, you need to keep these customers in mind, understand what they value the most, what they are comfortable with, and what they are not, to make sure that your library is able to serve the needs of these customers. And interestingly, we have a combination of both digital natives and immigrants using our library. So we need to have features that cater to the needs of both these types of users. So that makes it a little more complex. The second rule is to empower your customer. So the customer could be digital native or digital immigrant. Either way, you need to empower your customer. There are very interesting experiments that are going on across libraries in the globe in terms of empowering customers. So here is an example of the library at the Portland State University, which runs this project called a do-it-yourself library. If you visit their portal, you'll be able to see how they are able to empower their users. As soon as the user gets into this website, he's able to navigate through the library and its offerings, and he's able to customize every single thing for his specific needs. And it's entirely a do-it-yourself spirit with which this library has been designed. And it's a great experience to go through this particular library here. And this is just one example. There are many such interesting experiments that are being tried out. So this is what I mean when I say empowering your customer. This is the right time for us to introduce radical trust, a shared model between the user and the librarian. We refer to this as participatory librarianship, where the effectiveness of the future library is a combination of three things: books and all the stuff that's there in the library, plus the people, plus a new factor which we call as the trust factor. And the summation of these three is further amplified by multiplying it with the participation level. And it is this interesting formula that defines the effectiveness of the future library. What it means is, by involving the users in designing and running the library across several key areas, whether it's referencing, collection development, strategic planning, publicity, at every stage, the participatory library is on a larger scale outside the physical and virtual walls of the conventional library. So this is a very, very powerful model where we are not separating the users from the library, but we are looking at the user, the library, the librarian, and the trust they have within themselves as one single entity, and focus on enhancing the participation levels, which will in turn translate to a more useful library, a library with a bigger impact. So you may wonder, all this is nice to hear. What should I do? How should I go about redesigning my library such that it is ready for the future? This is where I'd like to introduce a very powerful methodology called design thinking, which is what you could very easily use to make sure that your library is geared up for the future. Here I have a small case study which is based on a library that was designed for teens. You know that teenagers are people not very easy to understand, very easy to deal with. So a bunch of librarians wondered why teenagers never come to the library. This is a kind of a one of the classic problems in the library world, that libraries are unable to attract the teenagers. So if you're trying to solve this problem using design thinking, the very first thing you do is to empathize with the users. In this case, to empathize with the teenagers, understand what are those constraints that prevent them from coming to the library. So to do this, they went to the teenagers, interviewed them, spoke to them at length. Many workshops they conducted at various schools and colleges, and a lot of weekend activities in clubs. They understood. One thing they understood, which was a kind of a rude awakening for them, is the teenagers told they didn't feel welcome or they didn't feel comfortable in the library. It's a kind of a very fuzzy statement. You don't know what is it that makes them feel not welcome or not comfortable in the library. But that is the voice of the customer. That's what the teenagers said. So once empathize is over, the next stage you move to in design thinking is to define the problem that you need to solve. This is typically starts with how might we. So how might we involve the local teams in transforming the library into a place where they feel welcome and comfortable? Look at this statement. It's not about you solving the problem. It is about you as a librarian involving the users or the future users, the teenagers in this case, involving them to transform the library so that they feel welcome and comfortable. So once the defined part was done, we move into ideation, where we look at what all ideas can we create to address this particular problem. So they came up with many ideas based on a lot of brainstorming sessions. They installed digital boards in the schools. Everywhere they set up, they put a lot of post-its where people could share ideas. Hundreds of ideas started flowing in. And then they merged these ideas and came up with this very strong concepts, about 10 in number. And they asked these teenagers to vote for these ideas and selected the best one. And once the idea was selected, the next stage in design thinking is to prototype the idea. So the prototype, the winner idea, which was called the chocolate corner. Chocolate corner is basically a remake of the library with a lot of soft furnitures, board games, playstations, an electric tea kettle, and mugs, and a provision for making hot chocolate within the library itself. Once prototyping is done, the next stage is testing. So here, the teams helped out by decorating and choosing the furniture and helped to shape the space itself in the library. The value of the cozy corner with hot chocolate is greater than just having a special treat. Creates a sense of ownership and community. They feel that space is theirs and they have something there that they chose and designed, and they can all hang out there together. It's a nice, cool place. And this is a real project that was done and became very successful. It attracted a lot of young students, high school students and college students to this library. So that this model was replicated across the country. This happened somewhere in Holland, Denmark, one of these countries where they felt that it is a priority to expose the value of library, value of spending time in the library to their youngsters, especially the students who are in high school and college. So this was a library that was built, designed for the teams using the design thinking framework of empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. This is a very, very powerful framework. I'm sure many of you, we did this in when we conducted the Mahindra Future of Library event in 2019 and 2020. We introduced design thinking for all the librarians, and we did a lot of idea generation using this powerful framework. For those of you who want to really use design thinking for your library, there are a lot of very rich resources available. Here, I've given the website, and there's an amazing handbook on design thinking for libraries. I would encourage you to download this handbook and the free toolkit and train your team to apply design thinking principles for redesigning and recreating the future library. This is very easy, it's a lot of fun, and it will give you tremendous satisfaction to generate new ideas using the design thinking methodology. So you have empowered your users and you have involved your users. Now it's also important to empower yourself. You, the librarian, should feel like a Superman because of the empowerment that you have done for yourself. And this empowerment is not through a bigger budget or anything fancy, but it is through technology. It is basically you learning certain new technologies that will make your life easier and make your work very, very impactful and highly efficient and effective. One of the big technologies that you as a librarian have to start leveraging is what we refer to as big data, the data analytics, the power of using AI and machine learning in the domain of data science. As a librarian, where it can help you is in terms of reach, improving the relevance, and also in terms of building resilience in your work processes. This approach, once you are able to master big data analytics, you'll be able to get a lot of very valuable customer intelligence, which will drive a lot of your new idea generation, and it will help you to prioritize the right initiatives for your library. The other trend is to have experiential learning made possible in the labs. The labs will be there in the library. Can you imagine a lab right at the center of the library? This is a very interesting trend because we talked about libraries moving from information to knowledge to wisdom. So when we talk about moving from information to knowledge, a lot of it is experiential learning. That's why we need to have labs right in the library. This is a project which was done by the University of Rhode Island. They built an artificial intelligence lab right inside the university library. It was right at the heart of the library that this AI lab was created. It's a highly interdisciplinary space that values inclusivity. So, a library where everybody walks in all through the day is a right place to have such a lab. The AI lab basically at this university offers students and instructors the chance to learn new computing skills, encourage them to deepen their understanding of artificial intelligence, and also explore how it might affect their lives through a series of talks and workshops. So it is not only a lab, but a very vibrant place where people walk in and use the space to explore this new technology, try out new applications, try problem solving. It's a very, very active, vibrant place right at the heart of the library. This is about 600 square feet of lab that they have created inside the library. And they are able to bring in a lot of new technologies like robotics, natural language processing, ideas for building blocks for smart cities, smart homes, IoT, big data. All these labs are situated within the library. So this is a very interesting trend where the library not only has books and other resources, but also gives a space in the form of a lab for people to take their learning to the next higher level by giving experiential opportunities to learn new technologies. The third important technology for a librarian would be blockchain. I'm sure many of you would have heard about blockchain and you'd be fairly curious as to what it is. And the perspective from which I look at it from a library perspective is it could be used to build an enhanced metadata system for libraries and data centers. It will help you to keep track of digital first sale rights and ownerships, to connect networks of libraries and universities, and it will even help you to support community based borrowing and skill sharing programs. There are a lot of resources that I have put together in terms of helping you to adapt and apply blockchain in your own libraries. And there is one link that I have included here. There are a few more that I have in my reference chart, which is towards the end of this presentation. Having looked at the three rules, which is to know your customer, empower your customer, and most importantly, empower yourself, I wanted to shift gears and introduce three powerful models which will bring connectivity to your library. It will make your library a connected library. How do we do this? Because the library of the future is a connected library. So, what models can you adapt to transform your library into a connected library? Let's look at these three models. The first model is what I would refer to as the Matilda model. This is where the library actually connects with a cause, a very important cause, which is the library's role to enable self paced learning and lifelong learning. For those of you who have seen the movie Matilda or read the book, you know about the small girl who didn't have the chance to go to a school, but she went to a library, read almost all the books in the library, and educated herself. So, this is Matilda. Matilda may be a fictional character, but there is a real world character who is on the right side, who is Scott Young. Scott Young is a real person who did his computer science education from MIT in a virtual mode. He didn't attend classes at MIT. He didn't take 4 years to complete his undergraduate in computer science. He attended online classes, read the books that is shown here, and he completed the entire 4 year program in just 1 year. Just 1 year instead of 4 years. And that too, it's a MIT computer science undergrad program. And can you guess how much you spent for it? He spent only $2,000 for this entire education. And he has passed and qualified himself every single subject that goes into build a 4 year curriculum. So this is what I mean when I talk about self-paced learning. This is very important. Libraries can be those enablers which will help people who don't have the privilege of going to a university or affording an expensive education to educate themselves at their own pace. So library can play the role of a university. What I mean by lifelong learning, there was a time when we learned, then joined the industry and kept using our knowledge and kept working. But today, The pace with which new technologies are coming in, we have to constantly be learning because there is so much to learn and there's so little time. So if I want to work till the age of 60, I have to learn till the age of 60. I have to continuously keep learning. So I can't take a break, go back to university and learn. But I should be able to learn in a more flexible mode, in a more self paced mode. How do I do that? That's where libraries can play a very, very big role in terms of not only helping students, but even working professionals and anybody and everybody with the aspiration to learn. Libraries can become the universities which will give them flexibility and offer affordable and accessible education. So this is what I call as a Matilda model, where the library connects with a cause. Let's look at yet another model, which I call as the Airbnb model, which is that the library connects with the resources. What do you mean by that? So you know that Airbnb is the largest hotel in the whole world. Can you imagine how many rooms this hotel has? It has 6 million rooms in 81,000 cities across the globe. So Airbnb makes available to you 6 million rooms across the globe. But you know what? They don't own a single room. It's you and I who are registering ourselves at Airbnb and making available that spare room in our house. That's how the Airbnb model works. If we extend that model to a library, the library becomes a platform that connects people who want some information, knowledge, or a book with other people who have that information, knowledge, or book. So, library becomes a platform to connect the people who have with the people who need. For example, if you look at me, I have such a large collection of books at home, but at any given time, I may not be reading more than two or three of these books. But can I really share all the other books with all others world who want to use these books? If everyone like me can do that, imagine how rich, how much access we will have to books at almost zero cost. So can library be such a connecting platform? That's what I mean when I say libraries need to connect with resources. And this is the simple and successful Airbnb model. I have just one more model to share, which is the decathlon model. So, friends, we looked at two models where the library can become a connected library. The first model was to connect with the cause, which is the Matilda model, where the library can play the role of a university offering affordable and accessible higher education to customized education for every single individual. Second model is something quite interesting in terms of what a library can do based on an Airbnb model, where the library connects with resources across and becomes a platform for connecting people who have the information with the people who need the information. I have just one more model to suggest. The third model is what I call as a decathlon model. I don't know whether you had the chance to walk into a decathlon sports goods shop. Especially, I'm not very knowledgeable in sports, but my daughters, they are very active in sports. So whenever I have to buy something, some sports items for them, I walk into a decathlon shop with very minimal knowledge of what to look for and how to compare two products and how to buy the right product. But when I go in there, typically what happens is one of the decathlon staff approaches me and asks me what I want. And once I say what is it that I want, they help me to understand and compare products, their features, and spend a lot of time with me till I'm satisfied and pick up the right product. Once I'm done with that, they also suggest what other accessories I would need and what else I can actually look at in terms of related purchases. And this person stays with me till I complete all the purchase and get to the cash counter for the bill payment. So you can see a lady here in a blue and white uniform. That's a Decathlon staff explaining a product to the customer. So when I talk about a Decathlon model for the library, I'm wondering how, when a user walks into the library, how we can give a similar experience. Because some users may be very knowledgeable, they may know what they want. Some other user may not be knowledgeable, they have to figure out what they want and where to find it. So it'll be nice if there is somebody in the library who can help them with that. So in a traditional library, it could be the librarian or one of the staff members who would help the users. But in a future library, if you look at how technology can help us to do that, I've shown two pictures. This is typically what you would see in some of the high-tech museums. The top one you see, there are two ladies wearing a headgear and looking at a painting. Because of the headset, you get to hear all about that painting, and it's also done in many different language options so that you'll be able to stroll around the museum at your own pace and understand each and every painting that's out there. So this gives you a lot of freedom and it's a very rich experience. And if you look at the other image I have shown below, that's basically a HoloLens. You wear this, and then there is a holographic image of a person who's actually a guide, which pops up. It's a virtual image, and then starts describing to you the painting that you are looking at. So libraries can have the equivalent of this, what you would find in a high-tech museum, to help the users understand their needs, understand their preferences, and help them with the right recommendations, right knowledge, right orientation, so that the overall experience in the library is a very pleasant experience for the user, so that they look forward to coming back to the library again and again. So this is what I call as a decathlon model, where the library connects with the users either through technology or through people. But this is very, very important when you're talking about a future library. All this is fine. We have ideas, we have rules, we have models, but we need to create a roadmap to find how. Suppose you want to go from Chennai to Delhi. First you need to know that you are at Chennai. You need to know that you have to go to Delhi and then find the route to go from Chennai to Delhi. Same way, when you talk about a future library, we need to know where we are today and we need to know where we want to go, and then look at the various routes through which we can go from here to there. And this roadmap, you're not going to do it alone or just with your team as a librarian, but you are going to co-create this roadmap with all your users. This is the right way to co-create a roadmap for the future library. You would look, first of all, you will survey the customers and staff and understand what are their expectations. You will do a lot of interviews of library, city, and technology leaders, understand what are those enabling technologies. You'll come up with a lot of ideas. You'll prototype processes and journey maps. You'll create focus groups. You'll do a lot of IT assessments. You will study the trends. You'll borrow the best practices. You'll create technology visions. And finally, you'll create the future state and the roadmap. So what is evident here is the design thinking framework that we start our conversation with is what is going to enable to reach the state of the future library. So you start with empathizing with your users, defining the problems that you need to solve, ideating, creating a lot of innovative ideas, prototyping this, and testing and validating to make sure that your users actually see value in these ideas. So the roadmap, which every librarian should co-create with the users and have a live roadmap in your office. This is a combination of you working along with your users and using digital technology, creating a lot of innovative ideas and also disruptive models. This is where the three rules of knowing your customer, and empowering your user becomes the guiding principles when you drive innovation. And finally, when you're talking about the disruptive models, that's where the three connected library models is of help. To do all this, definitely you need to acquire certain skills. You may have some of these skills, you may have to further strengthen. And you may not have some of these skills, you may have to acquire them, learn from scratch. But these skills are a must have. All the skills listed on this chart are very important for you to realize your vision of a future library. The first is a set of three thinking skills: critical thinking, design thinking, and innovative thinking. Today, we had a chance to talk about design thinking. On a future occasion, I'll definitely spend more time on critical thinking and innovative thinking with all of you. Maybe we could do this when you all visit us for Future of Library 2021 to the Mahindra Research Valley. We can spend maybe a day training ourselves in both critical and innovative thinking. Certain basic skills and attributes that you all need to have would cover curiosity. Everything starts with you being curious about knowing things, followed by creativity, your willingness to collaborate, your focus on your customers, and your ability to manage large scale change, and your ability to communicate both within your team and with your key stakeholders and all your users and customers. In terms of specific technology skills that you need to acquire, data analytics is the most important skill because you process a lot of data and you'd find this technology most useful for your work. Then you need to familiarize yourself with artificial intelligence. AI assisted library management is a whole field by itself that you need to expose yourself to. Blockchain, I very briefly touched upon, and I'll be sharing a lot of resources for you. Then you need to be very comfortable in maintaining your blogs and optimizing your social media interactions. Then you also need to explore a lot of advanced search techniques, and you need to pick up basic coding skills. And what becomes most important is your learnability, ability to learn new things, that flexibility, the willingness to learn, which is all captured under the word learnability. And this is what will make you a great leader amongst the community of librarians. So these are some of the skills that I could think of, and I thought we would consciously put together this list and explore all opportunities to learn and practice these skills going forward. There could be a few more. If you talk to other experts in your domain, they may be able to mention a few more. But this is a small list that I could think of based on what I have seen happening in my own domain. So, to summarize what we talked about today, what will definitely be very relevant going into the future would be the 5 laws of library science that Dr. Ranganathan talked about. So that will definitely be the guiding principle as we get into the future library. But what will change? Almost everything else will change. That's the interesting part. But as long as we are guided by these 5 laws, I think we won't get lost. We'll be able to manage and reach the future library state. Let me just remind you of the 3 rules: know your customer, empower your customer, and empower yourself. And the 3 models: connect with the cause, connect with the resources, and connect with users. I think if we remember these 3 rules and 3 models, I think we are in good shape and we'll be able to achieve our ambition of creating the future library. And if you have any doubt at any stage, you know what to do. As J.K. Rowling says, when in doubt, go to the library. So I wish you all success in your journey, in your endeavor to create the future library. I want to thank Dr. Pandurang Kannur, Dr. Ananda Bhairappa, and all planners and key officials of this particular conference who have put their heart and mind together to create this LISACON 2020 conference, and for having given me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you as a keynote talk today. And I hope it was something useful, and I'd be most happy to stay back and answer any questions that you may have related to this presentation. So wishing you all success in this journey of creating the future library. Thank you so much.